Hello and welcome to Williams Mullen's Trending Now and IP podcast, a legal podcast focused on providing innovative companies and investors with important and timely information concerning intangible assets such as patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets. I'm your host, Rob Van Arnam, and today I'll be joined by my colleague, Amber Duncan, a partner in our corporate section here at Williams Mullen. She's here to discuss customer reviews, the good, bad, and ugly. Hi, Amber. How are you doing?
Hi, Rob. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad to have you with us today. This is an important topic for particularly those involved in e-commerce and digital marketing. So let's start off with maybe the positive, those gold star glowing reviews, the ones that we all love and love to get. How can a company use those reviews?
So this is the fun part to talk about, those great reviews. So sometimes a company will approach us. They see reviews out there that customers have left on their own and want to use those or repost them or use it even in marketing materials. And it's important to understand that those customer reviews are considered part of this phrase called user-generated content. Same thing as if it was a blog, a photograph, a tweet. Customer reviews can be considered that because it's something the user generated. So the company will need to comply with FTC's endorsement guides because that review will be considered an endorsement. If the review considers or contains claims about the company's or competitors' products, you'll need to substantiate that claim. So just because it's the customer saying it and not the company saying it, in general, you can't use something in your advertising that the company itself could not say. So if the company cannot substantiate that claim, you can't then use the customer review in a commercial way to get around that restriction. You have to make sure that the review itself is otherwise complies with the FTC endorsement guides. It cannot be unfair. It must be truthful and not misleading. Just general tenets of advertising law. Now getting in, that's the broadest picture, but if you want to use a review and it's on Facebook or on Twitter or another platform, often these platforms will have requirements themselves about what you can do and how you can repost and business pages. So make sure that you always review those platform-specific requirements. But in general, you never just assume because a customer put a review out there on a public website that it's in the public domain and that you can just use it however you want without following additional steps. Finally, something to think about is make sure that you have written permission to use that review or that material because taking it and then retweeting it and use it in a commercial way, you'll need to do that. There's right of publicity issues. There's other intellectual property issues. In general, I would never recommend reposting another brand or a celebrity post or something with an image without getting permission to do so. And one final note about that is something that I often see is hashtags can be protected as well. If the Super Bowl is happening, you see a great Super Bowl ad, or Super Bowl hashtag rather, you can't just repost using that hashtag because that hashtag could be protected by the company. So just a few different things I threw at you there.
Right. Well, that's good. Those are some good recommendations. What about now turning to bad reviews? Is there a way to make sure customers don't post bad reviews?
As much as I would love to say yes, no. There's actually federal law on this, and the Consumer Review Fairness Act, the CRFA, makes it illegal for companies to include provisions in their contracts that threaten to penalize people for posting honest reviews. This law came out of a few cases. The biggest ones were with wedding vendors, where wedding vendors would include in fine print in their contracts that even if the bride was unhappy with their service, they could not post a bad review about them or they'd be penalized. So this law makes it clear that you cannot do that. You can't penalize someone for posting their honest review. You can't put those provisions in your contracts. And you cannot penalize someone to give that review or to give up their intellectual property in their opinion that they're putting out there.
Got it. Okay, so you can't stop a negative review just because it's negative, but what can a company do to protect itself from inappropriate or irrelevant content in a review?
Yeah, so the CRFA says it's okay to prohibit or remove a review that contains confidential or private information, is libelous, harassing, abusive, obscene, vulgar, or inappropriate with respect to race, gender, sexuality, ethnicity, or other intrinsic characteristic. If it's unrelated to the company's products or services, or is clearly false and misleading. Now, each social media platform has its own requirements. They usually mirror these requirements that are contained in the CRFA. And every platform has a way to submit a request to take down a post that a company thinks would fall into these categories of inappropriate.
And can you tell us more about those sort of common either social media or platform requirements to take down reviews or posts? Is there anything a company can do there to respond to that type of review, or if the platform won't take it down?
Yeah. The first thing I like to caution folks is just because you don't like the consumer's statement or review, it doesn't necessarily meet the false and misleading standard. That is a higher standard to meet. So the first thing you would do is go through, report the post. Every platform has a different way to do that. Yelp, for instance, you see a lot of questions about Yelp reviews. If it falls into one of three categories, Yelp will take it down. If there's an apparent conflict of interest, if the review does not focus on the reviewer's own consumer experience, or the review includes inappropriate material. Facebook and Instagram have similar requirements. Their standard is if it violates their community standards, which is a much longer document of things that you're not allowed, that either Facebook restricts or prohibits on their website. So both platforms has a way that you can submit a request to take down that post. And Facebook commits to trying to review those requests within 24 hours, but have noted on their community standards that the number of reviewers they have right now in the COVID world is less. And honestly, in our practical experience, we often don't see a response within 24 hours. A lot of companies are frustrated with Yelp or Facebook where they want to get a post down. So there's also some things you can do outside of reporting it to that platform. We encourage any company that's dealing with a negative or bad review to respond to it. It's an opportunity to show the customer and potential customers that the business is responsive to customer concerns. It's an opportunity to publicly display customer service skills and should lessen the impact of any negative review. So respond quickly, offer to remediate the situation, even if you're in the right as the company. The customer may not even take you up on a free or replacement product, but just the offer is sometimes enough to appease the disgruntled customer. Try to be authentic as possible, avoid a canned response. Try to reference specific concerns that were included in the negative review so the customer feels heard. If it's a really small business and there are very few negative reviews, it might make a much bigger impact if someone much higher up in leadership responds. And you can also consider following up with a customer offline as well. Sometimes this extra effort is much appreciated. So there's both the formal response process going through the platform, but then just some general non-legal, just business ideas to how to respond.
Yeah, that's a great, some good sort of formal and then also practical guidance on how to respond to those. So any final thoughts on custom reviews, and particularly any questions that you're getting consistently in this area?
Yeah, so two things that come to mind. I often get questions on incentivizing reviews and if you can incentivize a customer base to leave good reviews. Sometimes there's platform-specific requirements. Amazon recently bans giving free product in exchange for reviews. That's a new one that many companies are not aware of. But in general, if you're giving an incentive to a customer, either because the product is free or discounted, or giving them other compensation, doesn't have to be cash compensation, it can just be any sort of reward, that needs to be clear in the review, because that, looping back to the FTC, is something the FTC would think a reasonable person would want to know, that this glowing review was given, but the customer received some sort of incentive to give that review. So it needs to be clear, the connection between the company and the consumer that is being incentivized. In their review, we recommend that it's really clear and conspicuous as the FTC standard, that this was part of a campaign to learn new product, or that the customer received free or discounted product, or whatever the incentive was, that should be disclosed in the review itself, either at the beginning or a bold at the end, but they shouldn't have to dig for information to find out that connection between the company and the person reviewing it. And the other question I get a lot is, what about those good reviews that you're getting often on Yelp and they're just not showing up? Yelp, like all our platforms, are using some crazy algorithm to decide which reviews to show us and the order to put them in. There are a lot of articles online about pulling positive reviews out of the Yelp filter. I've had clients have mixed reviews and getting the good reviews pulled up at the top. So that way, if there's only one bad review, it's buried down at the bottom and customers can see most of the interactions are positive. I think we're running out of time here, so I would just encourage, if that's an issue for you, just to Google the Yelp filter, because that is a way to address it.
Well, great. Thanks. That'll wrap up our discussion today on customer reviews, the good, bad, and ugly. I'd like to thank Amber again for joining me on Trending Now, an IP podcast. If you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, please contact us. You can also visit our intellectual property practice page at williamsmullen.com/IP. There you can find out more about our team, as well as past episodes of this podcast and legal alerts. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast to be notified when our next episode posts. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.